I will never forgive you if you are a part of the group within MAGA that stands by everything Trump says, and I'll specifically not forgive you for the way you've turned against our military and military leaders. For so long, it was at least the people who identified with the same term, even though I'm not really at all associating with it now, but conservative, that would say even disagreeing with conflicts that we're involved in, even if included in that disagreement is the utmost respect for people serving in that conflict, that was unpatriotic. And that means you hate people serving in the military. And now, just because Trump says so, you've become a movement that disparages at every turn so many people in our military, and you stand by a guy who does so in the most vile of ways. And I think one of the quintessential examples of this is the contrast between Mark Milley, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and Donald Trump, and how when you hear Mark Milley, who served for 44 years in the military, who rose up the ranks to become the tip-top leader in the United States military, and you have looked at him, listened to him, and said, I think you spent your entire life, as J.D. Vance asserted, to get where you are just so you could lie because Trump wants world peace and you don't. That was the J.D. Vance argument, put shortly. And you choose to side with someone who's lived a life of honesty and service. You side against that person, I should say, in favor of the person who is notoriously a liar. I saw Heath Mayo say, yeah, I'm going with this guy's word over Trump. It's not even close. And this is former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, at the American Bankers Association. He was asked to speak, and he does, as always, he respects the norm that current and former military leaders don't speak a lot on politics, and that they shouldn't be involving themselves in political campaigns. But you'll hear the reference to MAGA and the disparaging, and Trump specifically disparaging the military. While you're listening, if you appreciate this show and you want to support it in the easy, free, simple way, become a part of the Beasley Brigade by clicking that subscribe button.
Look, you have a great military, and anyone who says otherwise either never served or wanted to serve, dodged their service, or don't know what they're talking about. I can assure you...
Dodged their service? He's talking about Trump. Before going further with that clip, he's done this before. I've played this clip many, many times.
To a country. We don't take an oath to a tribe. We don't take an oath to a religion. We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or to a tyrant or a dictator. And we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator. We don't take an oath to an individual. We take an oath to the Constitution, and we take an oath to the idea that is America, and we're willing to die to protect it.
Right. Wannabe dictator, just like dodging your service, is a reference to Trump. And so he makes a point very clearly. He crushes the MAGA idea that we have this weak, ineffective military because of wokeism or Democrats or Kamala, and goes through brilliantly here just how it's quite the opposite.
Look, you have a great military, and anyone who says otherwise either never served or wanted to serve, dodged their service, or don't know what they're talking about. I can assure you... I can assure you from private to general, you have an exceptional military that is highly trained, very well led, very well equipped. Right now, you're running probably about 100 to 150 ships in the oceans of the world, keeping the sea lanes safe for commerce. You're running about probably 5,000 sorties of aircraft every day. You've got 180,000 U.S. troops deployed in about 100, 120 countries around the world, maintaining some degree of stability. That's not happening because of pixel dust and magic dust. That's happening because of well-trained, well-resourced, well-led troops around this world. And many of them are in harm's way. So every single day we should be thanking the lucky stars that we have young men and women that are willing to answer the call to the colors, because they're out there on freedom's frontier every day, allowing you to be bankers, allowing Americans the right to vote in next week, allowing Americans freedom of speech and the right to protest and so on and so forth. Those rights, the down payment for those rights, the down payment is the blood of American soldiers. And that has been paid for 2.5 centuries. So you have every right to be proud of your soldiers, your sailors, your airmen, and Marines, because they're the ones on a day-to-day basis that are providing the environment for you to enjoy the freedoms that we have. And I will tell you that those that do separate from service, I would just ask you to really consider hiring a vet. What you're going to get is a mature young man or woman. You're going to get someone who's dedicated, hard worker, who wants to get ahead. They're well disciplined, and they're good people, and they're going to do great things for America. One of the things that the American military does, and does very well, is create great American citizens. And we take them from high school or college, and whether they're officer, NCO, or junior enlisted, every single one of them is dedicated to this country, and they're never going to turn their back on the Constitution.
I honestly was getting emotional watching this, thinking about all the things, just running through the list in my head of all the things Trump has said, up to and including saying in times gone by, the punishment for Mark Milley would be death. It's so sick and depraved that millions of people say, yeah, that's what I want in a president. Someone who speaks about his general like that. Who speaks about our military like that. And do you know why so many people feel okay supporting him? A messed up media landscape, yes. But so many people who know better. Like Nikki Haley. Do you remember when Nikki Haley, after having her husband who was serving insulted by Trump, she said, you insult one member of the military, you insult the entire military, and you should not be president of the United States? Whenever you insult the service of somebody. And then she flips around and says she's supporting him. It's people like her who give permission to good-hearted people who could know better, but choose to do the wrong thing. And no, I'm tired. I'm tired of acting like it's acceptable to go the person with the most powerful megaphone in the world and whose words can have an impact like nobody else. I'm tired of people waving all of that away, brushing it all away by going, oh, that's just Trump's style, but I just like his policies. And the perfect example, without even going through the secretaries of the people who worked around Trump also in national security capacity, the secretaries of defense, national security advisor, so those folks, just focusing in on General John Kelly, who was Trump's chief of staff, and General Mark Milley, who is Trump's joint chiefs of staff chairman. Just those two people, without the hundreds of other Republicans who served either in Trump's administration or in other Republicans' administration who are saying Kamala Harris is the patriotic choice. Just those two. And what they've had to say, I'll show you another example of Mark Milley in a second here, about Donald Trump and what he stands for. And for it to reflect perfectly what Trump has said publicly. They say there's no way Trump could have said about fallen soldiers that they're suckers and losers because they put themselves in harm's way when they should have been doing something in the interest of themselves instead. MAGA says there's no way Trump could have said that. But then on camera, he says, I like people who weren't captured, which is why he didn't believe John McCain was a hero. You can't act like you actually believe this is all fake news. You can't act like, as it seemed J.D. Vance was arguing, that General Mark Milley served his entire life one deployment after another. Look at this summarization of his biography. If you walk through this, I encourage you to look it up. It would take too long to go through, but tons of education, then 44 years of service, and then being a leader of a leader of a leader of a leader in our military. He did all of that just so he could then lie in a one book where he's being cited by Bob Woodward about Trump just because he has Trump derangement syndrome. It's the supporters who have a derangement syndrome about this. And I'm sick of the passes, and I've given way too much sympathy and way too much flexibility on this. I don't believe you anymore. I don't believe that you genuinely think Mark Milley, that man, a man of character and service, is coming out and at the end of a life of service just randomly choosing to lie about Trump when he says what Bob Woodward has said that he said.
We've heard in the past days from many of Donald Trump's former generals. John Kelly spoke out recently. You spoke at length in the book to my dear friend, General Mark Milley, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
One of the most respected people
universally respected
in the military ever.
One of the most decent men I've ever known. And he described Trump as a fascist to the core, the most dangerous person in the country, and added, you've got to stop him. In your 50-plus years of reporting, have you ever experienced something like that from a four-star general?
I have not.
Wow.
And I mean, that shook me.
Yeah.
Because he stopped me and we said, we've got to talk. And I tell you, Donald Trump is the most dangerous person ever. A fascist to the core. Mm-hmm. Wow. And then he supported it with his views. And something to think about when you have somebody like Milley make this declaration. And then you look at the long list. Sorry, this is boring. Of former Trump aides, cabinet officers, publicly said Trump should not be president and shouldn't even be on the ballot.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Pretty bad.
No, we have a democracy. He should be on the ballot if people want him there. But former Vice President Pence, former Secretary of Defense Mark Esper, say he should not be president.
But isn't he a convicted felon,
yes.
Bob?
Yes,
so
I know.
So how come he's on the ballot?
These are the people who worked with him to protect our national security, which is a president's job number one. All of these people, Defense Secretary Mattis, former Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats, former Chief of Staff, John Kelly.
It's only an hour show, Bob.
You know,
the list is getting longer and longer.
But if you're hiring somebody to take care of your children, what do you call references?
Right,
and if you said no, don't let these people near your child. Don't let Donald Trump near the Oval Office.
Right.
The other thing that's really scary about this is it had to be specified by General Mark Milley that members of our military take an oath to the Constitution. They don't take an oath to Trump, to one person. It needed to be specified, but the fact that it did is disturbing. And another thing that General John Kelly quoted Trump as saying is that I wish I had the generals that Hitler had. No, I wish that Trump had the generals that he had. I wish American presidents have generals unlike what Trump thinks Hitler's generals were like, but misunderstands. I believe in being patriotic. The opposite of patriotism is wishing your government functioned more like Hitler's. That your military functioned more like Hitler's. And then MAGA goes, you're calling him Hitler. No. It's not our fault that Trump constantly said stuff like that. We're just saying, hey, he said he wanted those types of generals. And I just need to circle back to it one more time because we've been hearing it so much in preparation for today's show. It's just so unfair for people to say Trump's the new Hitler. Who's saying that? Other than J.D. Vance previously, who is actually saying that? Of any noteworthiness? What we're saying is Trump has a fixation with authoritarians and dictatorial individuals like that one and many others and present day ones. And he's quoted as saying these things. That's his problem, not our problem that we're talking about it. And so you do have a choice. Many of you have already voted. MAGA, you're not listening, but I'm going to pretend like you are for a second. You have a choice. You can side with a bunch of people who served honorably and have now looked at Trump's actions. Some of them were in the room with him, in the Situation Room, and say, this guy is a fascist to the core, should not be president again, is unfit. Choose your phrase. You can side with those people. You can side with people who have no record of being dishonest throughout their life. Like General Mark Milley, someone who is decorated literally for his honorable character. Or you can side with the guy who called STDs his Vietnam, or avoiding STDs, who did dodge the draft, as Milley pointed out, who has told so many factually, verifiably false things, and who's done everything throughout his life in service of himself. You're siding with that one. That says a lot about you. And I'm really tired. Even though I sympathize with people still somehow, and I want to believe you're just misinformed, I am tired of hearing the weak, lazy excuses for your decision. Let me know what you thought in the comments. We're just so close to the election. I know I'm getting more aggressive than normal. If you do want to support this show in the extra tier way, you can do so by clicking the join button below and become an extra special member of the Beasley Brigade.